All right. All right. Well, hello, everybody. Good evening, and thank you for joining us. My name is Amy Phillips. I am the Youth Programs Manager with the Conservation Foundation, and I'm also in charge of webinars. Our usual host, Connie, had a conflict today, so you get me instead. But don't worry, Connie will be back next month. For those of you just getting to know us, the Conservation Foundation is a nonprofit organization proud to be accredited by the Land Trust Accreditation Commission. And our mission is to improve the health of our communities, something that we're talking a lot about today. And we do this by preserving and restoring natural areas and open space, protecting rivers and watersheds, and promoting the stewardship of our environment. We'd like to thank Itasca Bank and Trust for sponsoring this webinar. Sponsors like Itasca Bank help to keep these webinars free for everyone. So please contact us for more information on sponsoring. We will also post our contact information and links to our sponsors' website in the chat and on YouTube with the recording. You, the viewer, can also help us keep these webinars free. If you enjoy them, we encourage you to please donate to help TCF continue to do all the wonderful things we do, including and in addition to our webinars. When you become a member, you also get to enjoy a wide variety of members-only offerings, and this is our 50th year as being the Conservation Foundation. So we have a lot of fun celebrations going on, and we'd love to see you there. So follow us on social media to learn more and stay updated. Okay, couple of upcoming events. We've got our next webinar will be Wednesday, October 5th at 7 p.m. usual time. And it's going to be all about native bees, how to stop them, and native bees and other pollinators, how to stop them or how to spot them, and also how to help them. So we'll be joined by Conservation Foundation's own Jim Kleinwachter, as well as Glenn Perricone from the Forest Preserve District of DuPage County. So join us for that awesome conversation. Will be about cultivating host plants, providing overwintering habitat, and other gardening tips to help minimize your impact on insects. We've got a couple of really interesting events coming up. One is Beer, Bands, and Barns. For those of you that are maybe a little bit out west and are familiar with the Dixon Merce Farm we have in Montgomery, that will be on Saturday, September 17th. It is a fantastic event. Everyone speaks wonderfully of it. And there's also a couple of Fox River cleanups in St. Charles and Yorkville on that day too. Jason's going to spend a lot of time talking about our upcoming Green Earth Harvest Community Market, and that's going to be on Sunday, September 18th. So we'll share a lot more about that in the presentation. So we're excited to have everyone come out for that. And there's also O'Hara Woods Community Day on Saturday, September 24th. We're going to be doing some brush clearing, some litter cleanup. We're going to have a children's activities and forest therapy walk. So please join us. And it's also farm season. Last event, it's also farm stand season. So if you are local, please stop by our farm on Saturdays from 9 to noon or Wednesdays from 3 to 6, all the way through late October for your fresh organic produce. So now for this evening's topic, community connection and fun on the farm. This is Green Earth Harvest 20th year, a 20th anniversary, and our farmers are celebrating these 20 years of building local community and connection to the land. So with that, I'd love to turn it over to our farm manager, Jason Halm, and he'll tell us all about all the fun things that he does to build community as well as feed people. Jason.
Yeah, thank you for having me tonight, Amy. I'm really excited to talk to you all about local farming, and you can see my kind of subtitle for this presentation is Feeding People, Self-Determination, Community, and Feeding a Little Bit of Fun too. It was an interesting angle to talk about building community and fun on the farm. Typically, when I talk to people about what we do at Green Earth Harvest, it's more of a technical aspect. I've talked about composting and pest management and organic certification and this and that. But I think this is a really interesting way to talk about it that gives you hopefully more of a sense holistically of what a day in the life is like and what sort of those technical skills really aspire to build, which really is something bigger than just technical mastery in organic farming, although we strive for that as well. So to introduce myself, my name is Jason Halm. I'm the farm manager at Green Earth Harvest, which is the organic farm program at the Conservation Foundation. I'll talk a little bit about how I got here, how Green Earth Harvest got started, and yeah, we'll kind of go from there then. And I apologize if I am coughing. I don't know if you could see, but I guess I got a little dry cough fit today on the farm from, pollen and such. So apologies if that makes the audio a little funky. And so Green Earth Harvest is headquartered at, and the Conservation Foundation is headquartered at McDonald Farm in unincorporated Naperville. We are, if you're familiar with the area, we're in Will County, just south of the Will-DuPage County line, which around here is 87th Street. And we are sandwiched right between Bolingbrook proper and Naperville proper, about 3 miles south of downtown Naperville and a minute or two right off of Washington Road, which is sort of a main thoroughfare for the area. And to give you a sense right now, this is McDonald Farm in the 1960s, or this picture was taken roughly in the 1960s. Most of the buildings, or I believe actually all of the buildings pictured, are still on the farm and are still being utilized. So I'll kind of go clockwise from the furthest left and talk a little bit about them. The one all the way to the left was the house that Lenore McDonald and her family lived in, that is now the ranch house is what we call it. And it's an office space for folks working here at the Conservation Foundation. There is the next building to the right, or going clockwise, sorry, is actually my apartment that I am sitting in right now. It was, I believe, the driver's quarters, or the carriage driver's quarters. And the Green Earth Harvest farm office is also in there. The next building clockwise is, we call it the granary now. It sort of serves as a base of storage for a lot of tools that we use on to just maintain the general farm property, not so much in the farming operation. But we also store winter squash there every year because it just holds heat exceptionally well, stays much warmer than the surrounding area. And so last winter, for instance, we had maybe 20 bins of butternut squash in there for much of the winter. And by 20 bins, I don't mean like little totes. I mean, we probably had about 5 to 10 tons of butternut squash in there last winter. And the next one going clockwise is the barn. That's sort of the base, the beating heart of Green Earth Harvest's farm operations right now. There's we have a tractor parking space. That's where people pick up their farm shares, or most shareholders pick up their farm shares. That's where we have in this barn that was built in the 1850s or 1860s, this 19th century barn, we have a very 21st century commercial walk-in cooler that we got custom built a few years ago. Kind of interesting to see the mix between old and new in that. And then the next building is the milk house. Was previously used, right around the time of this picture, to milk cows and keep the milk in slightly dug out pits to keep it cool. Now that's the farm crew's break room and lunch area. And this is that same farm. I'll just do it one more time and show you the juxtaposition, the historical juxtaposition. But this is that same farm in the This is that same farm about 30 years later. I grew up in the 1990s, right in the area. I grew up in Bolingbrook, so right next to Naperville, and I had ridden my bike past the farm before. I really like this photo because it shows, if you look, the top third or so is all houses, subdivisions that are still there. and you can see a road that comes right up to the farm. And then there's the farm. And then on the bottom third, you can see that same road built right up to the farm. And I suppose the assumption was that that road would end up being built right through. And for Naperville, for Bolingbrook, for this general suburban area in the 1990s, that was actually probably not a bad assumption to have, if it weren't for Lenore McDonald, who I'll talk about in a second. And just a little, I think this is a great spot for me to talk about how I ended up at the farm. I grew up in Bolingbrook, just south. I grew up maybe 4.5 miles away from the farm. And grew up, as I said, in a very sprawly suburban area in Bolingbrook, watching, as I grew up, you could see farmland be gobbled up by this kind of voracious appetite of development. So that was really interesting for me to grow up seeing. I ended up taking solace sort of in, or really enjoying the restored prairie or semi-restored prairie behind my parents' house. Grew to really like being outside, then working outside while I was in college. And I actually happened to start working on this farm 7 years ago in 2015, because it was the only place close to my parents' house where I was living at the time where I could ride my bike to work and then work outside. And I think of that often in terms of making conservation and agriculture accessible to more people, is that if this weren't so close to my house, it would have been pretty inaccessible to me also. And so trying to give back to that. But enough about me for now, at least. I want to come back to why this road never was built through and never connected. And instead there's a circle drive and 60 acres. The farm is 60 acres, almost exactly. 60 acres of still open space that is right in the middle of suburbia, and why we're able to farm on this land still. And it's really because of this woman, Lenore McDonald. She married into the family that I never got to meet her. She passed away, sadly, in the late 90s. But I believe she married into the family who had owned the farm. And then her husband passed away. And she really was, in kind of a classic sense of the word, the matriarch of the family. Again, from kind of a hearsay, I've heard this, that she really was the person in charge, and she loved hosting family members and community members, and just having people on the farm is something that I think was, in what I've heard, was extremely important to her. And getting people together and building community and being very open with people from the area and with her family, and just having a ton of people come together to enjoy this piece of land. And I'm going to go back again real quick. Whoop. And you can see in the back of this photo, it's all farm fields, but you can see where the property, or at least the fields that were farmed, and I think it is the property line, kind of makes a zigzag roughly in the top quarter of the frame. And that was, I believe, the back 40 acres that her and her husband owned. So the front is what is the farm now. Everything before that zigzag and everything behind that is no longer farm, it's subdivisions. You can't quite see it in this photo, but what happened was that she thought she was going to donate it to, I believe, a senior community that she could live in and kind of live out the rest of her days once she was unable to live independently, and just kind of watch her farm be actively farmed, and whoever owned it next. And the place that you went to do this, they turned around and actually sold it to a developer. And that, I've heard she was a fairly fiery woman also, which great people often can be fiery when something upsets them or when they see something that's perceived as unfair. And this really upset her. So she actually came to the Conservation Foundation, or her and the Conservation Foundation somehow found one another and started talking, and it ended up turning into an arrangement where she would put what's called a conservation easement on the farm, on the 60 acres still remaining, which ensured that they would not be developed in perpetuity, so forever, that they would only be used for agriculture, conservation, and education. And then she decided to actually donate the entire farm to the Conservation Foundation once she decided to not live there independently anymore. And so this, I believe in 1997, this became the Conservation Foundation's headquarters. And the Conservation Foundation, we don't really own too much land, but this is kind of a jewel of an open space to sit on, to be headquartered. It's very central to our service area as well. And for several years after that, there was another farmer from the area who rented out the land and was doing, pretty typical like corn and soybean rotations. I believe like farmers had been leasing land from Lenore and her family. And yeah, so this became the headquarters of the Conservation Foundation, I believe in 1997, right around that time. And TCF was almost entirely a staff or a volunteer organization. So volunteers really got to work turning the farm into the headquarters that TCF really wanted it to be. And then 20 years ago, this guy, Steve Tewald, I believe at the time a member of the Conservation Foundation, so a donating member, came to Brooke, our then and current executive director and president of the foundation, and said to him, Brooke, I think there should be an organic farm in Naperville. And I think the Conservation Foundation can play a role in that. And I've been told by numerous people that Brooke responded, well, Steve, I think you're the person to do that. And I'm still not sure if that was a dismissive, I think you're the person to do that, or an inspirational, I think you're the person to do that, but it was probably some mixture of both. And pictured alongside him is Karen Hutt Tewald, or Karen Hutt, and that's Steve's wife. And she's also played just an incredibly large role in Green Earth Harvest. So they started in 2002 as Green Earth Institute. These two, along with several volunteers from their DuPage County Church and other people who were really interested in organic and sustainable agriculture at the time, and with a good amount of help from the Conservation Foundation, it just so happened that that corn and soy farmer was leaving the McDonald Farm property. It was becoming too much to kind of ship farm equipment back and forth. And Steve was able to start actually on that field that is pictured right behind them. Those were the first farm fields of Green Earth. In 2002, they started this nonprofit Green Earth Institute, and it focused on education for kids, garden education in particular, or education centered around organic agriculture, and then organic agriculture production. So they started on the field behind them on just a fraction of it, and it quickly grew and grew and grew as volunteers poured in. It was Steve and Karen have lived in Naperville at the time, and I still do. And so it was really centered in that community, and they had a ton of community support through and through. Steve stepped away in 2018 as it was his second or maybe even third retirement, and decided that it was time to enjoy more time with his grandkids or with their grandkids, and enjoy this next phase of his life. And at that time, TCF had grown so much in the 20 years or so before that a merger kind of seemed like the appropriate move. Before that, Green Earth Institute was renting the land from the Conservation Foundation, and with extra resources and built up infrastructure that TCF had taken on, seemed like the appropriate move. And so about 4 years ago in 2018, the two nonprofits merged on January 1st of 2018, and Green Earth became a program of the Conservation Foundation. And because Amy and her team really do a great job with the education component, Green Earth really started to focus on the organic agriculture, organic farming production, which had kind of become our focus in the decade or in the 10 years or so before the merger, had kind of shifted to that anyways. And so we changed our name to Green Earth Harvest to kind of reflect that changed focus. And I want to just kind of give you a quick video overview. I think a few of you have been to the farm before, but for those of you who haven't, this is some drone footage. I'll probably skip around a little bit, but I really just want to give you a sense of what 60 acres of organic agriculture really looks like in Naperville. And this is around this time last year. I believe this was September 19th of last year, which was our last community market. And our community market for this year is coming up in a week and a half or so. I'm going to mute that music, but this is the front quarter or so of the farm. So you can see it's actually quite large, quite a bit larger, I think, than people realize at first. You could be forgiven for thinking that this was the entire farm, but it's not. And then in this, in the next few seconds, it pulls up on kind of the center area of the farm. And in addition to the barn having tractors, storage, and all that good stuff that I mentioned, we also wash and pack all of our vegetables right outside of it. You can see in the background there are a couple greenhouses. We have 4 greenhouses now. So it's a really cool repurposing of older buildings, and we've built on some temporary structures that we could with the conservation easement. And then this is the original, I believe, yeah, this is the original quarter of the farm that Steve and his crew started on. And as you lift up, you can see more of the farm. This is again the front, but the farm has 30 acres or so of fields. So it's almost, it's about half fields. Really a mid-size, even for this area, it's a huge farm, and really just in general, it's not small. And so Green Earth Harvest has grown to feed 700 or so families roughly every year between Farmshare and CSA. That's kind of the bulk of what we do, is 28 weeks of Farmshare. So people pay ahead of time and come and pick up every week or every other week, typically from our barn. It's all organically certified produce. We grow roughly 40 vegetables, over 100 varieties of produce for sure. Almost entirely from seed. We do a few things from bare root plants. And right now, one of our priorities is working towards producing produce and fresh vegetables for 52 weeks out of the year. We're at about 30, or really at about 31 right now. And we're getting closer and closer every year. We have mostly staff. We have a limited space for volunteers for sure. And we love the volunteers that we do have. We have maybe about 10 volunteers that are pretty regular. although most of them don't even come every week necessarily. And then in the bulk of the season, in the really busy time, we have about 10 staff members, depending on the year, of course, and on people's availabilities. Now, I talked about feeding needs and self-determination and about feeding community. And even though I clearly had a misstep with PowerPoint on the bottom of this, I thought this was a really interesting way to think about it, is Maslow's sort of hierarchy towards self-actualization. And to me, community is love and belonging. It can be self-esteem. And I think fun might actually be even higher. I think fun might actually be self-esteem and self-actualization. And so when you think about what leads to a farm that works both for consumers, for staff, for the volunteers on our farm, and for people who just interact with us, whether it's sitting down for a webinar, reading articles that we write, just interacting with the farm in really any way, we kind of think of this pyramid and how do we meet people's different needs. And so obviously a farm like ours meets people's physiological need of food, and we help meet people's needs of fresh air and fresh water by not, being just another spot that gets developed. And we take pretty seriously kind of the stability and employment and health, or stability and health that comes with stable, healthy, secure, safe employment, which is unfortunately something that is lacking a lot in agriculture and even in organic agriculture. And then we try to, at TCF, we talk a lot about creating a real sense of belonging for our staff members, for volunteers, and for customers and shareholders and even people who stop by the farm stand but decide not to buy anything. We still want them to feel like they belong to our community. If they live close, if they're interested in us at all, we want to reciprocate that. And the next kind of step up, the self-esteem that comes with people's ability to learn a totally new skill working here is just really incredible. And I've seen people come in kind of unsure of themselves. I've been someone coming in unsure of myself and really seeing what I can do and what I can do as a part of a team. And then that leads to that, highest rung is self-actualization. And that's fun and creativity and acceptance and purpose and potential. All of the stuff that we really are here for. And I think it's important to realize that even when you're getting that top pyramid, getting bites off that top pyramid, you still need all the other levels fulfilled. And just because you have, and we're all on this pyramid in different spots at different times. And so I think there are two questions that I kind of ask, or two sets of questions I kind of ask, is what obligations do we have as a farm, as a food retailer, that goes to food safety? And what obligations and what opportunities do we have? It's, we're grateful for the gift to be able to help people plug in on this pyramid. And then I also ask, where can people plug in on this pyramid? Different people are at different steps. A lot of our volunteers are retired. They are safe and secure. They have their physiological needs met, and they're focused more on spending time with community members, with family, and a sense of belonging that they really want to feel. And then there are younger people who are just starting out, as we've had interns from high schools. We've had people fresh out of college who are focused on, how can I meet my physiological needs? How can I have the safety and security of a great career? And how can I start it here at Green Earth? And so we don't take that lightly. And I wanted to talk real quick about just the sense that it's kind of funny in a way that we find it odd And I find it odd too, having grown up in an area with a lot of houses, but not any farms, or any food farms at least. There are a good amount of corn and soy farms, not too far away from here, but not too many fresh produce farms. And it's interesting that we think of farms as being separate from communities of eaters. And it just has begun to make more and more sense to me that our farm is surrounded by people who eat. And it's just wild that that's not the case everywhere. And so we're trying to make it the case in more places, I suppose. Now, I'll get to the good stuff, I think. So just a quick overview of our staff. Farm employees this year from 16 to 65 and came from all over the Chicagoland area. I am stunned by how far people drive to get here when I could only be bothered to ride my bike 4.5 miles to start work here. But this is really, the farm crew is really the heart and soul of the farm. And it's something that this is what I love the most about my job, is working with the farm crew every year. So if you know anyone who's interested, we're typically hiring seasonal staff in early March or so for an April to December season. And right now we're actually currently hiring a farm manager. I have decided to move on like Steve did, although at a much younger age, and I will be working just into a next phase of my life. So I will miss it here. I'm sure I'll be around, and I'll continue to be a big booster of the Conservation Foundation and Green Earth Harvest, but I'll be leaving sometime after this harvest season ends. And yeah, I'm really looking forward to see who leads this farm into the next 20 years. And here are just a few pictures of staff members in general. The top left is after we did a garlic harvest in early July of last year. It was a big staff and volunteer day, actually. And it's always just a day where we feel so proud of all the work we've done. And so you can see all smiling faces, except for mine, of course. I was trying to be serious. And then in the bottom left, you can see that it's not always so serious. I try to photobomb, and I hop in whenever I'm not really wanted in photos on the farm. But really, like, some of these friendships that we've grown here have become really the closest friends that I have ever had, for sure. In fact, really everyone from these photos, and this is just a fragment of the people that I've worked with, but really I talk to everyone in these photos still at least once a week, and typically quite a bit more than that. And then to the right is Alyssa after dropping like 30 bunches of scallions. And this was maybe a month or two after she started on the farm. So, we realize that we're not always all perfect, and we have some good blooper photos. And, this is one of the memories that we laugh about the most from last year. And I'll try to kind of explain it to you. But in the bottom right, the woman in the red and yellow, Diana, she interned with us for 2 months as a unpaid intern for her master's from the University of Illinois at Springfield. This was last June and July. She interned with us. And so she would help us out in the field. She would study about sustainable farming. She did some soil testing for us. It was a really good experience for her, and the crew really grew to be very close to her. She's fluent in Spanish, and so the guy in the middle of the photo in the bottom right, Agustin, he's worked on the farm for, I believe this is his 13th or 14th year. I think 13th season working on the farm. And Diana is fluent in Spanish, and so he loved having someone to speak with. And really could express himself and talk more in detail about the farm than he can to me with my limited proficiency in Spanish. And this was on Diana's last day. Coincidentally, it was Chuck's first, or Chuck's second day on the farm. Chuck is the guy in the bottom right photo all the way to the right, with the hat on, or with a like kind of beanie on. And so this was his introduction to the farm. Alyssa is the one in the bottom right photo looking to the side. And we heckled her and teased her for driving too fast in the Gator and in the Mule, the UTVs that we kind of zoom around with all of our harvested produce. And it was like 3:20. Our days end at 3:30. It was like 3:20, and I realized that it was going to be really tough for us to finish this cucumber harvest by the time 3:30 rolled around. So I was flying in the Mule, which is that vehicle I'm pictured next to. And of course, I make the turn coming out of the field, and like 4 or 5 bins of cucumbers fall off and just go everywhere. And from 500 or 600 feet away, I can hear Alyssa just heckling me right back, screaming and just like overjoyed at my, acute failure. And and we're trying to take a picture. We went out to a nearby bar with Diana afterwards, a few of us, and we're trying to really hurry up and then take a photo. And Augustine the whole time is just like not having any of this. He's like, I need to go to the bank. I need to go to the bank. I need to go to the bank. We don't really know why he needs to go to the bank today of all days. And so it's small, but this is just an experience that we laugh about all the time still. And it just goes to show, I think, how much fun we really do have on the farm, and how, there are days where I like cry laughing at some of our lunch conversations and at some of our experiences on the farm, because you work just so closely with one another that when you start work at 7 a.m. with someone and work with them for 8 hours you pick sometimes thousands of pounds of produce in a day, bent over, there's no veneer that you can put on yourself. You're just going to see your fellow crew members for who they are, for better, for worse, and hopefully there's a good bit of comedy in it too. And then our volunteers, many volunteers are retired or students, but we've had plenty of folks from, all sorts of backgrounds and walks of life and stages in life to help wash and weigh produce, work in the fields, help maintain some gardens on the farm. We have one guy who drives the tractor who's been helping Green Earth for, I believe, for the full 20 years that we've been doing it. Oftentimes we have people on Tuesday and Friday mornings, but it really depends on how badly we need someone, what they want to do, what they're willing to do, if they have skills in organic agriculture before. But these are some of our kind of all-time best or favorite volunteers. On the top left is that garlic day that I was talking about, when we were all harvesting garlic together. I believe that was from last year, actually. So that was the same day. Harvested, thousands of pounds of garlic together. The bottom left is Sharon. She's been volunteering with us this is her this might be her 6th or 7th year even. But we love this bag is from carrying my emotional cabbage. I told Jackson in the background to stand behind so it looked like he was in the bag, and I told him not to smile. I don't know why, but the effect didn't turn out as realistic as I had hoped. In the bottom right is Melanie, whose dad helped start the farm and who she helps with our farm pickups. She is taking a picture of the sunset. This was literally yesterday. I have a good sunset photo to show you guys at the very end. And then in the top right, there's myself and Chuck working on the farm again this year. And then Emily, who volunteered on the farm a little bit this year, but mostly last year, was a high school senior and really just wanted to get experience on the farm. She literally was my cashier at Fresh Time in like January of 2020 or 2021. And she saw the Green Earth Harvest reusable bag that I had and said, "Oh, do like asked me about it, and we started talking. I gave her my email address, and then she started coming on and helping us, which is a joy to have her. And then I just really want to talk too about the ways that you can plug in as a consumer, so to speak, or a visitor or a shareholder. We have sort of three main ways we sell our products and produce. We have a plant sale in early May for people with gardens, people who aspire to have gardens, people with enough light to grow some herbs in their kitchen. We have our farm shares. That's the bulk of what we do. They go on sale to the general public. Oh, wow, that sentence didn't turn out how I wanted it. They go on sale to the general public on December 1st every year, but the shares run from mid-May to late November. And there's more information on our website for sure about those and about the plant sale from this past year. We have farm stands from early July all the way through probably late October, on Wednesdays from 3 to 6 p.m. and on Saturdays from 9 a.m. to noon. And on Instagram or Facebook, we post every Wednesday and Saturday about what produce we're going to have, usually right before we go down there. But you can kind of check what we're going to have before you decide to come out. And then we have various winter farm stands also. We had one in January for the first time this past year. And then our community market on September 18th from 1 to 4 p.m. on that Sunday, we'll be selling our produce, and we'll have several other vendors that I'll talk about in a second. And this is kind of a little chart that I had for another presentation that I did earlier in the year, just about eating local in general. You know, Green Earth might not be your jam for whatever reason, but there are other CSAs, there are farm stands in the area. Beyond ours also, there are co-op grocery stores, there are online delivery sites, there are farmers markets, you can grow your own. And I really just want to encourage you, even if you don't come to Green Earth Harvest right now, to try to support local food, local growing as a viable career for people, where and when you can. And so on the left, you can see, fortunately, we got a photo when, honestly, the barn was a little more empty, or not too many people kind of in, but people come into that 19th century barn and pick up their produce grown with kind of the best methods of the old and the new, with 21st century weed control methods and science backing up really old school organic growing. And so you can see people come in and pick up 8 or 5 items depending on their share size, and then they'll have you pick. And we also did deliver, in addition to on the farm, to centralized drop-offs in Winfield, Hinsdale, Lisle, Downers Grove, and Lombard. And in Naperville and Bolingbrook, in the immediate vicinity of the farm, we've started to have some home delivery options as well. And then on the right is Mac and his sister Karis, who did the farm stand. Mac does the farm stand a lot for us. You'll see him down there most Saturdays. Great kid, one of the 16-year-olds who worked with us this year. He was 15 when he started working with us last year, and he did a great job then too. And his sister Karis, who will sometimes volunteer with us. And then we also have UPIC for shareholders. And so some of these are crops that it may not make sense for us to pick, or it would be very time consuming for us to pick. Cherry tomatoes, green beans, sugar snap peas, snow peas. Those are all included in the shares. And so you'll get a full size share, and you get to bring your kids out or bring yourself out and do some U picking. It's a really great way to experience the farm. And if you eat a few extra cherry tomatoes, I will try not to tell anyone or report you. And then in the bottom left too, you can see we've started to experiment with strawberries, and that's kind of a paid opportunity for shareholders over the past few years, because the plants are so expensive, but they are, I promise you, the best strawberries you've ever had. Just incredible. And so those are very seasonal. All of these are seasonal. Strawberries are here for a couple weeks in June. Peas are here for a couple weeks in June. Green beans, we try to have all summer long, kind of this year, not as much. And then cherry tomatoes, we had starting maybe 4 weeks ago, and we've had them for several weeks now. Then we also do pizza nights. The past few years, we've done 2 a year. We had one roughly around the June solstice, kind of the very beginnings of farm season. And then one right around the back to school time that to me has become really a marker of fall. This year, it was like August 30th or 31st. We've had it in early September before, or late August. But these guys, the North American Pizza and Culinary Academy, they bring out their portable pizza oven. They use farm fresh veggies on salads, on their pizzas that they do. I bet you've never had a kohlrabi pizza before, or a salsa verde pizza before. Just really, really great guys, and really good food. We also always have a musician playing, little kids dancing the best that they can. Amy and her crew do a lot of children's activities for the pizza night as well. So it's really, these are like some of the best days on the farm for sure. And then a real quick plug also for the community market. And I'll throw a link in, if Amy hasn't already, a link in to the TCF website that talks about this community market. But we'll be selling our produce. There will be vendors selling meat and eggs and fruit and flowers and culinary and medicinal herbs. These are vendors that we have outside of our pickups. Every week, really, we have some vendors outside of our pickups for shareholders, but they'll all be full out in force this Sunday in about 10 or 11 days. We'll be doing tours. I'll give a tour of the Green Earth operation. There'll be a conservation tour. Amy will talk about the children's activities they'll be doing. And then there'll also be educational opportunities. There's a composting seminar. There's a container gardening class. And like I said, I'll drop a link if Amy hasn't already. And then if Amy wants to talk about sort of the children's activities, and Amy, just let me know and I can click through the slides for you.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll go just through it quickly, but we were talking about building community, and Jason's built quite an amazing community of these vendors that come on certain pickup days, and then they all come to this community market at the end of September, in the middle of September, and it's just like this culmination of this amazing season. And so he's been really, really good about building that kind of community of vendors and community of shareholders. And so I just wanted to talk really quickly about some of the things that we do to build, community with children as well. So a lot of our programs, the TCF programs, the Conservation Foundation programs, are open to the general public. They're open to everyone, but a lot of our attendees and people that participate are shareholders. So you can see that they really are craving to be a part of this larger community and movement. We have children's gardens. So these children's gardens, we have a children's sensory garden, which is all native plants, and it has different textures and smells and colors. And so the kids can kind of walk around there and have kind of a nature RX, or a fun experience in nature. And then we also have what we call our Lenore's backyard garden, after Lenore McDonald. And that is meant to be a demonstration of what everyone can do in their backyard. So we have 10 raised garden beds, all grown organically. We also have a fruit tree garden. So it's a fruit tree and all the plants that support that tree. And we have a pumpkin patch. We have nature play stations. These are just some pictures. Because we are fully outdoors, we're able to hold all programs, even through like the heart of COVID. We were still having kids outside and harvesting vegetables and playing with each other. You can go to the next one. So we have summer camps. So a lot of our summer campers you will probably see at the Fall Community Market on the 18th. They were all invited back because one of their favorite things to do is to bring their parents back into these gardens and say, look what I planted, look what I harvested, look what I got to eat today. So there you see, we have 5 camps all throughout the summers, and we do everything from arts and crafts to you pick to nature hikes to insect studies. I mean, you name it, we do it during these summer camps. So these are, and it's one of the things that those of us that work on the farm, we always know it's summer camp season when there's like 20 kids running around and everybody's having a great time. It just really kind of brings the energy of the space up. Go to the next one. We also have after school programs. This is something we started last year, and we have a new one. It's not quite sold out, but it's pretty well sold out for our after school program that starts actually this Thursday, and it's for elementary school kids. You can see that a lot of the kids just can't get enough of camp, so they want to come back and do it after school. So it's on the 4 Thursdays in September. Next one. And then one of the things that we do along with the Green Earth Harvest is mostly pickup days or different events that they have, like the pizza nights and things like that. We have things called family adventures. And so this is something, a lot of our summer camps are open only to elementary school kids. So this is an opportunity for kids that are maybe a little bit too young or even older to come and have this experience outside with nature with their parents or their family or caregivers. So there's always an art component, there's always a garden component, and there's always a nature component. And so sometimes it's, making mandalas, or sometimes it's going and smelling the different plants and trying to guess what they are. But this is always just a fun way to give another experience for people. If they're already on the farm for these fun events, like just come and have a good time in the garden too. Next one. Oh, culinary arts. This is one of my favorite things is, having these, we are actually one of our first Club Nature experience is going to be garden chefs, but everyone always asks, like, what is Connie's favorite dip? Connie is one of our educators, and you guys know Connie because she also does the webinars, but it's always Connie's famous farm dip. And she told me the recipe. I was like, you're kidding, that's it? It's literally like sour cream, salt, and fresh herbs, and you just mix it up, and it is the best dip. And we can get kids to eat all sorts of stuff that normally they would just turn their nose up and say, there's no way I'm eating that. And then you dip it in this dip and you're like, it's pretty good, actually. So we also practice the culinary arts with children. Oh, and then so even people that, can't necessarily get here for the summer for a summer camp or an after school program, we always have self-guided activities every pickup. So if you are a shareholder and you come to get your veggies, you can also wander around the children's gardens, and we just give them sort of structured activities to do that. Sometimes there are things to look for. You can go to the last slide. And sometimes there are a lot of scavenger hunts or different exploratory hikes that are all about seasons or senses or things to look at or things to get to know the farm. So, and, honestly, you don't even have to be a shareholder. A lot of these things are just available in the office because you can come to the farm during office hours, Monday through Friday. Anyone is welcome to come to the farm. You go to the ranch house and you say, hey, I'd like a scavenger hunt. And then you can kind of walk around and they'll give you one, and you can explore the farm on your own too.
Yeah, that's one of my, thank you, Amy. That's one of my favorite things about the farm is that it is open, pretty much during the day. And it says, I think, during normal business hours. And, if it's a little bit after 4 or 5 o'clock, I don't think you're going to get in trouble, but it's really a nice place to come and walk. It's right across the street from a really nice nature center, a beautiful forest preserve. And it's a great place to spend a couple hours. And I just wanted to talk a little bit about the future of the farm. Like I mentioned, I'm kind of on my way out, so I'll be here for about 3 or 4 more months, but I'm really excited to see where Green Earth Harvest goes over the next 10, 20, 50 years. And this is my vision for Green Earth, but it's really TCF's vision also, and shared sort of in common, and it's fresh organic food year round. Farming is a viable career for people in the area. Agriculture as a conservation method. Conservation can pay for itself. A food system focused on people, which doesn't seem like that crazy of an idea, and then organic, diverse, and equitable agriculture for everyone. And there's a saying, I didn't come up with this saying, but I really liked it. I pulled it from a TED Talk where this woman talked about planting edible plants all over her hometown in the UK. But she said, if you eat, you're in. And that's really the future of the farm that I see. Yeah, And if anyone has any questions, feel free to pop them in the chat or speak up. And yeah, I'd be happy to answer.
Yeah, we're just about at the end of our time, but I just had one question, Jason, because like when we talked about this idea of, creating this community on the farm, and I remember like maybe it was a couple of years ago, and all of these, you had created this, it was almost like a one-stop shop. You're coming to pick up your veggies, but you can also get your meat, you can get your fresh herbs, you can get these beautiful bouquets of flowers. And, I know a lot of that was your vision. So what inspired you to do that? And, how did you manage to kind of pull all that together?
I actually, to be honest, I would happily take credit for that, but I actually don't honestly remember who came up with the idea first, or if it was, a couple farms had done something similar-ish, but not really in person, because most farms have to kind of deliver much more, a lot more of their shares than we do. And then, it was kind of a couple people on end of season surveys as shareholders had mentioned, oh, it would be nice to get this or that. And then actually when Cheryl, who Amy and I work with, came on, she really stepped in and like made all of it happen. So that's really all her for sure. And she really coordinates that and leads it. But it really has become, it's so nice. I like don't have to go to the grocery store if I don't want to. They don't sell frozen pizzas yet. That's really what if we sold frozen pizzas on the farm, I would never go to the grocery store.
That's awesome. Well, I'm really excited. We're at the end of our time, so I'm really excited for this concert, or for the fall community market in a couple of weeks. I think it's going to be an incredible experience. I got to participate in it last year, so I hope everyone considers coming out on Sunday, September 18th between 1 to 4. So come on out and visit us at the McDonald Farm, and we'd love to see you. So thank you, Jason, for participating.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Everything. All right. So reminder, we have another webinar next Wednesday, or in October, and all the information is in the chat. So please come and visit us. You can see everything on our website under the events tab as well. If you have questions, reach out to either one of us. All right. So thank you, everyone. I appreciate your time. Take care.
Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.